Welcome. Share. Done. Oh. Let's see. So anybody that's watching, welcome. Just started, so I'm letting people come on in, read the slide that I've put up here, and I did a post on this last night. If you have anybody that this sounds familiar, share this with them. Also, too, if you resonate with this, my gosh, every time. Right. Well, I stick to one subject. It's pretty extensive. However, this is a really interesting question that somebody asked me. Not that it's not very well known, and a lot of people think of codependency and narcissism are the opposites, but that's not the case. It's this counter-dependency. Neither codependency, though I really think it's important to make a distinction, is that counter-dependency or codependency are not diagnoses like narcissism is. Narcissism is a backbone to all major pathology, so all major diagnoses, and is a personality disorder in of itself. So this is more about when we study trauma, when we study developmental trauma, meaning that chronic over time dysfunction, that's developmental trauma where a parent isn't able to help you developmentally on an emotional level, but they are able to feed you and physically get you to school and things like that. This is where we find these kinds of phenomenon occurring where codependency and counter dependency is seen. Let me see. So, in what ways, I think, do you see yourself in this? Because I'm bringing this up because we have some overlap here, and I think there's a very good chance a lot of people that are codependent can get with people that are counter dependent and have a lot of difficult times. Absolutely. Thank you for all your kind words, and supporting this. I mean, the content is for you, but I mean, as far as being able to appreciate it, Sam, that's awesome. I'd do anything. Thank you for and go ahead and double tap the screen a few times if what I say makes sense, or you want to give me a shout out. You can send presents, all that kind of cool stuff. But sharing and just double tapping the screen tends to be enough to kind of get the party started because of how obviously TikTok works. So I feel like I'm constantly indecisive and don't know myself outside my partner. Well, that's definitely codependency. And a lot of times that's what that difference in focus is that the codependent person is constantly focused on the other because that's where they source their sense of self. So the counter-dependent person is obsessed with their needs or making sure that they're going to be taken care of in themselves. And it's not in a narcissistic way. It's in a very self-reliant way, a fear almost that somebody's not going to be there for them because of something that has happened. So I think that the indecisiveness, you don't know yourself outside your partner. Well, what happens this is the downfall to that. Not only do you recognize that it's difficult, and you can go ahead and share with us a couple of the emotional things that happen because of this to you, and that's part of this process. It's not just about, let's fix this. It's about understanding what's going on underneath. What what's happening when you're allowing yourself to continue to be in this state. Once you understand that, then I think, now you have motivation. So it's the building of self-awareness. So tell me a little bit about that, Misty. And then I'm going to read, Rebel 88 says, how do I know if I'm counter-dependent or codependent? So I think that, thank you for the follow too. And I think that what's happening here is that it's kind of funny. People with codependency sometimes say, well, the way that you describe codependency is super independent. And I want to be really clear on this distinction, because codependency is a state of taking care of everything. I got everything. You don't have to help me. I got you. I clean up this, and I've done a lot of skits on how it's so much about being in charge and in control of the things you can fix, clean up, and take care of. That makes you look super independent. That makes you feel pretty, on your own. But that's not what's happening here. Here, this person is, the counter-dependent person is more, I'm going to go and do things for myself. They can even become more overwhelming, like work 12 hours a day to make sure I never have to ask anyone for anything, like money ever in my life. It's a way that people think about themselves as, again, so self-reliant, but so much about protecting themselves and what they have to provide for themselves in order to survive. Because of, most likely in this case, it's different, where the codependent person was a cornerstone for an enmeshed family. The counter-dependent person most likely is somebody that has had to be alone, raise themselves, and could not rely, but really had to also maybe even work while they were young for their parents. Their parents maybe even relied on them or were not there at all, and that scared them on a chronic level. It's so funny because I'm having, and if what I'm saying makes sense, double tap the screen so I can kind of see where people are following, and I will then go back and read. It's so funny because I've been in conversations with friends about not feeling like I can be in a relationship because of the counter-dependent behaviors. Yes, when my partner, I think that's the woman. I got one woman follower out of all the, tens of thousands of codependent followers that was like, I so recognize myself as the opposite of this. Help me. That because of opposites are like, right? In some ways, there can't be love without hate. There can't be black without white. There can't be this without that. And she was really seeing herself as codependency was her opposite. So I think that's the point, is that relationships are going to be very difficult to maintain and get in, because as they continue on, you're going to start feeling threatened if pushed to be vulnerable with your partner. And thank you for the likes. I totally appreciate that. Let's see. I'm going to go back one more time. And then you can, because you're really relating to this, to tell us a little bit more about your experience within a relationship. Namans. I can't pronounce that very well. Because that's the thing, is that I want to really get into at some point, not just the part about, the opposite part, the self-reliant, uncomfortable with intimacy, but maybe that's part of it. But what you kind of experience, what you experience in relationships this way, the pressure or the tension. When my partner's around, I can't make my own choices. About what, Missy? What's something that you would like to be able to make a choice about? And then what's the consequence? And I'm just going to give you an example. If there was my partner had to go away for the weekend and I couldn't figure out what to do with myself because my partner was away, Like I couldn't figure out how to make an appointment to do this or go see this show or call that friend or whatever. I was just, that kind of thing. Tell me a little bit more. Oh my gosh. Is it possible to turn? Oh, yes. We can turn some of that down. Let's see. I literally said today when I make X amount of money, I will never have to ask anyone for anything. Yeah, so, there is a sense of safety in that. Why don't you tell me why you said that? Because there's a lot about vulnerability in financial independence or a lack of. Thank you for so many likes. I so appreciate that. That's something that I really find to be, a major part of this is vulnerability. As far as what we're trying to avoid in a counter-dependent mindset. Thank you for the follow too, Cassie. When I talk to, okay, so let's go back. Oh, I see that Pacific asked about how should we work to control emotions. That's a deep question. Over issues controlling emotions, right? Emotions for people with codependency, as that people with has codependent issues is that there's usually an overwhelm where counterdependent, it's difficult to control if they are put into a situation where they feel vulnerable or threatened. They can become they can arouse a lot of fear. I'm going to be overwhelmed by you. I don't want to be close to you. I need to get out of this. So I'm going to self-destruct or I'm going to project a lot of my fear onto you. So that's the out of controlness there. But with people with more codependent issues, it's an overwhelm of guilt, of fear, of shame, of a lot of the real primitive anxiety. Real primitive meaning that these are all born within the first 5 years of our lives. And are pretty powerful and raw types of experiences. So until you can start to build what I call an objective capacity in your own mind to become aware of what you're feeling, it's a somatic sensation, it's an emotion, it's tied to thoughts, and it's about this. So see how I'm kind of breaking it down and looking at all the pieces. And I'm feeling it, yes, and feeling immersed in it, but at the same time, I'm able to think. So I'm going to breathe, I'm going to think through this. Controlling emotions requires the ability to become objective, look at what's happening within you, and make a decision to calm yourself down so you can think through them. Because they are information. I think bottom line is what I love about, if we can get to that point, I actually like to look at emotions that even come up that like are re-triggering of old traumas. There's info there. There's info about me as a person that I might need to communicate in order to let my partner know who I am. Right? Yes, in real time. Yeah, it's hard to do, but you practice it. And I think the experience of self-introspection, the kind that you would do, like self-analysis, you have to understand, how the mind is formed. And then you need to have self-awareness. And once you build that self-awareness, you're like, oh, I can kind of identify that feeling and where it's going to take me. I'm very used to it now. I'm not just swimming around with it. So there is, in real time, I think it's easier when you learn how to microprocess and you're very comfortable identifying and locating where this is coming from in your psyche, in your history, and why it's coming up right now. You don't have to believe that it's going to take you over, but you do need to locate where it comes from. So, but anyway, I love emotions as information. I'm going to go back a little bit to what Misty was saying, I can't manage my emotions for something like everyday problems with my partner, like insecurities, negative comments. I get pretty much anything. I might just be, it might just be comfort knowing that he's always there for me. You know, interesting. You know, yeah, it sounds like you definitely want to reassess the kinds of thing that, because that sounds to me a little bit like he's always there for me. And this is what can happen with codependency, and why I talk about it so much, is that we get into a dynamic of like kind of parent-child, not kind of, where we are in, and that person holds a role or space in our life as kind of our inner authority, that is our balancer, is the person that's there for us, and we are feeling insecure and can't make decisions and ambivalent and all over the place. But at least I have this person, instead of saying, actually, that person doesn't resolve this thing going on in my mind. That person loves me, great, and I'm glad I'm in a partnership, but I gotta deal with this. And I probably will show up as a better partner then too, because it's not really helping you grow. Him just being there for you, or being an enabler, and the same for you, just being there for somebody and always accepting whatever they bring to the table and not asking them to take responsibility for what that's causing as far as an issue in the relationship, doesn't help us grow. Relationships actually take work. We have to want to be in them and want to grow. Same with parenting, same with a work relationship, same with an intimate relationship. They require work and maturity, like over time. So you can't, it's not like this thing that you hope just stays good. It's not going to. So, and then I had asked, you're saying the person that's more counter-dependent here. When I talk to a guy, after a while, I feel like I need to assert my dominance so they don't feel like, oh, interesting. Where's your other part? They don't feel like maybe that they can dominate you. I definitely think that is a sign of especially trying to stay in equal and not vulnerable, and that this isn't going to go like other situations are, meaning you're not going to be able to manipulate me into intimacy, or you're not going to be able to do all of those things. You know, I'm not necessarily interested in being close right away. So absolutely, that is a way that it can manifest, especially in dating. My husband is an alcoholic and is a breadwinner of our family. The situation makes me feel stuck. I can only imagine that is not a trustworthy situation. And we were talking yesterday to a family that was going to, a guy that was going to therapy. It was called High Functioning Alcoholic Family Therapy. I was like, wow, that's a mouthful, but you are stuck. When it comes to alcoholism and the head of household is drinking, that is a very stuck and can be dangerous situation that counter dependency could start to be born out of, as you feel more stuck and less able to trust somebody that you're close to. So I think that's definitely worth. Thank you for the share, and definitely like this if you're CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. That's the same with developmental trauma, something very similar along those lines. Is codependency bad if the other person is okay with it? If the other person's okay with it? Misty, you're being bad. I think, Misty, this is what I always come back to with people with codependency, is they say, help me, I have a lot of problems, this and that, and this and that. And then they start to, it's like a proliferation, or just an amazing amount of excuses that come up once I start saying, oh yeah, this, oh yeah, that, oh yeah. They're like, well, but what about this? Or, oh, what about that? Or, oh, what about this? Or, oh, I just want them to feel better. Or, no, I just want them to communicate better. Or how do I, there are just all of these ways that the mind starts to kind of implode with defensiveness and try to find a way out, because we are creatures of habit. This is work, and it's work that we've never been trained to do. So a lot of times, folks, it is not that it's bad or good, or what if the person accepts it or not. It's that this is a stuck, emotionally difficult way of being in the world that isn't really about connection. Codependency it can be about taking care of others and neglecting oneself. But when we want to be in a relationship with somebody, if they're okay with codependency, that doesn't mean that they are doing a favor for you. That's not connection. That's I can be okay with narcissism, but okay, does that mean it's so bad or good? So it's like, we can't really say, our partner might be avoiding growth themselves if they find it okay to have issues yourself. So I think there's a certain amount of acceptance, yes, that a partner can have for what you're struggling with due to your upbringing and relational mindset. But it's so important when I work with couples, and definitely if you're following this, double tap the screen. Thank you for the follows though too, and everybody stopping by. But if you are really interested in connecting with your partner, you accept where they are, you have empathy for where they come from, and you try to understand them further so both of you can grow. Right, Grandma Gail knows what I am actually talking about. It is otherwise, folks, I see this because I work with couples in their 50s or whatever. Maybe they had, their kids and very distracted for a time from, the relationship or their jobs. But when they come back together, they're like two friends or mom and dad. Mom and child, where she's still kind of telling him what to do and ridiculing, and he's just avoiding and, oh, mom, just walk on eggshells, and go off and do my own thing. Okay, after everything you've been through, where's the closeness? So closeness is not in codependency. Closeness is not in narcissism. Closeness is clearly not in counterdependency. It's a process of understanding it, but then you need to, with your partner, want to connect. So this is where I bring this up, and maybe people have suggestions here. So when I start talking a lot and everybody kind of becomes quiet, I know you're listening. But if something comes to mind while I'm talking, oh yeah, that makes sense, or in this way, I have a question about what she's saying, type it down. That's like a free association. That's you thinking and being here with us. I'm totally open to kind of going back and forth, that. But what I want to say about this dynamic with a codependent person, I put out, I don't know if you saw, the gaming skit last weekend, and pretty much all hell broke loose after I put the skit out, meaning I have never gotten such a variety of responses to any of my TikToks before. Usually it's pretty, there's maybe 2 or 3 very clear, sectors of responses and types of people that are dealing with certain types of situations. This was complete blowout, major chaos. And I think some of it has to do with this. I think some of it has to do with men or women, but this was a very heavy, and so I'm just going to go ahead with men that are more counterdependent, not knowing that, with a codependent woman, possibly, or some sort of makeup like this, because the main problem was I can't talk to my spouse without, or my partner or my person, without them getting angry. For me wanting to talk to them about something I'm feeling, something I'm experiencing. And a lot of people came back to, again, with this idea of, oh, you attacked them. No, I interpreted something, and I'm trying to get you to use empathy, though I don't think a lot of people understand empathy is a skill, and it actually takes quite a bit of work mentally in order to do, in a really vulnerable, heart-opening way. However, I think counterdependency is something I'm going to try to continue to work towards understanding, because, the main problem wasn't gaming. No, it was communication. Gaming just was the way. Hey, yeah, this is an interesting topic. Thank you for joining. Is that communication about whatever it is? It can be gaming, going here, doing that, not being here on time, but whatever it is. There's just no ability to communicate about something that, yes, I think has a little bit more of like a in-house deal, where this isn't so social. This is something that we are behind closed doors. Gaming occurs, so we can see there's more of a breakdown behind closed doors with communication, by the way. But I'm saying within that dynamic. So let me see. So that's I see, like, somebody's talking about communication now. I'm going to say, wow, my person would wish your person would see this. No communication and broke up. Yeah. And I think that's the thing I've heard too, is that really at some point there is this, okay, let's be in a relationship but not very close, but we're going to be in, the counterdependent person can definitely want to be in a relationship, but the bond is just one where I really want to just stay independent of you, and we can come together and do these things, but it's not because I'm wanting to connect. And then finally somebody's going to want to start connecting that doesn't have this issue, and it's going to start to become a real problem fast. And I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure that they're not conscious of this. I think a lot of people are existing in this state unaware. Let's see. What can we do if we feel like we may be falling into this hole? I think that, number one, if you're able to start seeing it, it's not about flipping to the codependent side and going, oh, well, then I really should, putting yourself on the should table of guilt and, all those things. I should trust others, and I should, rely on this person more, and I can just be the opposite of this. No, it's more about trying to understand, again, the mind's capacity to generalize, mistrust others. So if you've been hurt, betrayed, humiliated, and all of these different types of, whether it's in the relationship or it's in a past relationship, those types of experiences need to be deconstructed. Meaning we have to think about the effects those experiences had on us, instead of letting them continue to stay solidified as I was taken advantage of, I was humiliated and hurt, I am the victim of that, I am the broken one from that, I am. So you're identifying with experiences in a very unhealthy way by keeping them stagnant. Yes, at the time it can feel that way. But if we don't start to break that stuff down and really process and understand it, it kind of solidifies in there. And we're like, it's like a block, right? So thank you for the presents or the roses. I was like, because that's where that's the work we do. That's what I'm talking about, microprocessing. And even with codependency, I saw Misty say, how do you start? You have to start working in those areas that you're conscious of, right? That you're conscious of aspects of your personality that are acting codependent. And you need to look at them and go, well, where did this come from? Why am I like this? And what is the consequence if I just keep doing this? And then use that as motivation to say, I learned something from that, but how is that serving me? Asking questions of yourself as well is helpful. How is this really serving me to keep mulling this over? So, I think that here, let me see what you were saying here. Couldn't disagree with her on anything. She took no accountability. Yeah. That the no accountability and is the responsibility for being intimate and close. So it's okay for us to be different. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, sometimes there can be a little bit of a little rub, right? Or a big rub, but regardless, you're gonna at some point, if you both have a desire to connect, go, oh, okay, I see your point of view, you see my point of view. We can agree to disagree, and it's fine to be different from me. It doesn't mean, but at the same time, there's this softening, not this, you're different and I reject you and I have no accountability. That's what I do because you are somehow just asking me to agree to disagree is a threat emotionally to a person this way. Yes, it is like a fear. And it solidifies from, it's going to happen again. Better wall up. Yes, you got it. And it can wall up with, it's going to happen again. It can wall up with sayings like, I told you so. It can wall up with self-hate. That meaning I was stupid to fall into that. Of course I was always going to be hurt. Why did I ever trust anybody? I knew nobody would accept me. Those are all self-destructive, self-defeating ways of, that's what I'm saying. Like, it gets locked in there. If it's fear, what our mind does is compound on top of it because we really don't want to experience that again. We make up all of this, what I call emotional reasons not to go there again. Some of those emotional reasons are projections from the past onto the future. Like, that person did it to me and they were an intimate partner. This person's trying to be an intimate partner, so they're going to do it to me. That's taking an experience and projecting it on the future. And then the other one is, and then I'm going to be hard on myself. I don't want to trust. So, that is a lot about why the anger comes up as well. And these things is like, especially if you had a parent that just kept on letting you down and kept on acting irresponsibly and kept on spending all the money or kept on, putting the responsibility on you, man, your anger is going to be pretty high and you're going to need to work through a lot of that before you get connected to somebody. Naturally, I'm counterdependent, but in my relationships with an alcoholic, I've been very codependent, right? Because you enable it. In some ways, I've been there, not saying calling you a name. It's what we all end up, where I came from too, in my family. And something that I recognize is not the counterdependent part as much as how the pressure of an addict can really cause, again, just like the pressure of an environment can shape your mind. The pressure of an addict can really cause an issue of codependency for you to happen at some point. Thank you so much for the roses. Very, very cool. Let me see. Yeah, I think I need to look at this more. Yes, definitely. During COVID, a lot of people left me on my own to deal with all the crap. And yeah, so I had to walk up, a wall up, I think. It has been eye-opening and awesome. Yeah, I absolutely think so. Because in code, that's somebody asked, and I might do a live with Matt Pfeiffer just so we can go back and forth with different ideas and what people have said. But I do think there is going to be a time for us now, as especially in the U.S., we've been kind of given the green light to go back, take off the mask. Let's do this. Now we're going to have to heal. We can't stay, walled up, walled off, thinking about the past. We got to really process that and get ourselves back out. It's kind of like before COVID, actually. I think a lot of people suffered from certain things, and now COVID kind of pressed the reset on some of that, and now here COVID caused certain things. So this is life. This is the life is the great teacher saying that I like to always put out there. It's an opportunity to grow, and we need to see the effects so they don't solidify. People lost a ton of friendships during COVID. Yes, and with their families too. Oh, and relationships have been ruined. It's affected people. Yes, everyone was forced to sit with their demons. Yes, I got a lot of calls during COVID. Now everybody's silent because of the recession, or not recession, I'm sorry, because of inflation. Spot on. I had to do all the changes for her. So you do one-on-one. I need help with primal wounds. Yes, it is. I do one-on-ones. I have some space left, and I do have to go in 4 minutes. You can go onto my bio and check out my website. I do recommend that the Emotional Warrior community, I do private group coaching calls, but there's 1 or 2 people that show up right now out of the group that's members. So it could be up to like 10 people on a call, but there's usually 1 or 2. And basically you can show up with your video on or your video off and start to talk with me. And so I can actually hear what you're saying and what you're going through. And then it is like a session like this, but it's so much more personal, clearly, because I can hear you and you're telling me exactly what's going on. And it's only $27 a month. That's like a killer value for a group session. I mean, it happens weekly. So go on and check out the website. There's a podcast too. There's a free masterclass, and you can contact me via email. Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. And I hope that you continue to think about these things, and maybe this would be a wonderful thing to start considering. I think I got a few clues from the gaming skit and now from post-COVID, absolutely, that we need to look a little bit closer at this possibly a consequence of that trauma. So I will see you again soon, most likely tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow night is Thursday night. I'm going to be doing an evening live with Matt on all types of abuse. If you're interested in learning more about that, he is a great person to chat with. Our conversations go really well, very insightful. All right, I'll see you then. Thank you.